Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in. Well, today I have Dawn Fleming with me on Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. Dawn, welcome to the show. You and I actually met through the podcast, so I'm excited to have you on today. You've got a lot to share, especially you're about to launch a program. And so we're going to go through all the journey of launching an online program, because that is what this podcast is all about, getting women to start businesses and get them launched. I'm going to hand the floor over to you. You give yourself a bit of a background and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me too, Lynette. I really appreciate it being here. I'm actually in my hometown of Minneapolis for the summer, and this was our third year of being snowbirds. We've been living in Mexico for the last 8 years. In 2016, we bought a ugly little oceanfront property that we converted to a boutique hotel. And we ran that for 5 years and then retired in 2023 from running it. We still own it. I still do the bookings. But meanwhile, I've been working on my passion project, which is helping other people who either want to do a similar thing or just something different. I call myself an attorney turned alchemist. I'm the proverbial girl. Life hands you lemons. I make lemonade. I'm a really good lemonade brewer. After financial devastation in the 2008 crash, my husband and I jumped on our 50-foot sailboat in 2010 with 3 houses in foreclosure and said, we got to get out of here because we can't do anything about this. Sailed over 5,000 miles through the Panama Canal, landed in Florida, North Florida for 2 years. Tom got a job for the first time in 25 years. I started a new business that blessed us immensely. We moved to South Florida, didn't dig the Florida vibe. And that's when I went to Isla Mujeres, which is kind of my happy place on the planet. Been going there since 1992. And we'd been looking at real estate off and on through the years and just decided if we're going to get in the real estate game again, I'm going to buy something that puts money in my pocket, not just a place to put a roof over my head. So we didn't plan on moving there, but a year later, we were like, okay, we have the sailboat. It's basically a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. It moves. If we don't like it, we can go somewhere else. So we just jumped on that, lived on the boat for a couple of years until we built out our apartment on the 3rd floor. And yeah, it's been kind of an amazing ride.
So let's talk a little bit about that, the up and moving to Mexico, because I think a lot of people are starting to think that way. So tell us, what does it take? Yeah, what does it take to find a piece of property down there? And maybe, like you said, that's going to put some money in your pocket, not just a roof over your head. I love that term, right? Because we should all be thinking that way.
It was only 4 years old and it was built by the number one builder on the island. So it had good bones and there were some design flaws in it. Really, the key to it is what I tell my folks in my programs is the key to it is imagination and not seeing something as it is, but what it could be. And, I would say one of the people that changed my life profoundly was Robert Kiyosaki. And I'll take you back in time. I was practicing law. I found myself being a solo practitioner, which I never wanted to do, but I affiliated with a legal services company, now known as Legal Shield, and referred people that I couldn't help. My girlfriend, who was a lawyer, turned me onto that company, and she begged me to go to this convention in Las Vegas. And so she talked me into going, well, the keynote speaker was Robert Kiyosaki. And while I had heard of him, I'd never read any of his books. I didn't know his message. And I sat there, I'll never forget this as long as I live. I sat there as he explained the cash flow quadrant, and it's just a little grid. And on the left-hand side, at the top is E, that stands for employee. Below that is the S, that stands for self-employed. On the right side is B, which stands for business owner, which he defines as being able to walk away from your business for a year and not have the bottom line affected, right? So definitely different from solopreneurs. And then I was for investor. And he explained this whole thing and about how, the middle class in the United States for sure, maybe Canada as well, is really taught to go to school, get good grades, get a degree, become a doctor or a lawyer or, a professional. Like that's nirvana, right? Nobody teaches us, except the wealthy teach their kids to use leverage in the form of either other people's money, other people's labor, and basically have your income not being dependent on your own efforts. And I remember sitting there and I had just, finished law school, a handful of years earlier. And I was like, OMG, what have I done? Why didn't anybody tell me this? I have just invested so much into this career path, and this is not going to lead to the lifestyle that I want. And it was a network marketing company. And I remember going back, I made the decision then. I'm like, that's it. I'm getting out of here. I'm a business attorney. I know there's other ways to make money. I got to find a better one. And I had already built a team just from referring people. But I told my girlfriend when I signed up, I'm like, I like the product. Don't ask me to go to meetings. I'm not shaving my head. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm not shaking the tambourine. Don't even think about it. And so what did I do? I got back to Orange County. I shaved my head. I started shaking the tambourine. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. And in 8 months, I closed my law practice and I matched my income my first full year with the company. And I never looked back. And today I still get checks from the work that I did back then.
Wow.
I haven't written any
And that
business.
was through Legal Shield?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be without it. I'm an attorney, but I don't know everything. I don't practice all areas of the law. It has saved us, through the years. It's one of the best investments I believe you could possibly make, is to have an attorney on speed dial. Yes. And to have all the protection that the program offers. But that was really the pivotal point when I knew I had to change careers, because like I said, attorneys die at their desk. That is their fate. And they don't have a lifestyle, that they love. They don't have the freedom.
Yeah.
And so that was really a pivotal moment in my time. And so I'm a voracious reader. I did law school in 2.5 years. And so needless to say, I purchased every book he ever wrote in the Rich Dad series. I read them all. In one of his books, maybe multiple books, he talks about the opportunity in real estate really being finding a property other people don't see the potential of. In fact, I did a YouTube video on how I funded my retirement, or how I found my dream house to fund my retirement, something like that. It's on the channel. It was one of the most popular videos that I did. And I actually told the story about how this came about. And in that video, I also told the story of my friend Danny, who I'd been in a couple of companies with. And he's from the East Coast, and he was project manager in construction and stuff. But he found this boarded up old train station in Maryland, I think Fredericksburg, Maryland. And it had been sitting there vacant for years. And he ended up buying it, and he's turned it into the most adorable little Airbnb rental. And he kept a lot of the charm from it. But I mean, how many thousands, tens of thousands of people walked past that property and just was like, oh, and it turns out it's actually the second oldest train station in the country. And it's built on the site of the oldest train station in the United States. So it's got historical significance. It's walking distance to, the historic district, bars, restaurants. It's really been a great short-term rental property.
So he had the curiosity. And I think that's what you're saying is that you had the curiosity to take and look at this property. So you were curious when you were looking at that property and thought, did you think right away we could probably turn this into?
Well, okay. I'll tell you the truth. So the realtor, we made an offer on another property. It fell through. We couldn't get we needed financing. We didn't have enough money to pay cash. Mexico's mostly cash deals, 90% cash deals, which is a good thing. I'll mention to people that don't know this, like that's why the market's so stable price wise, is because you don't have all of this monkey business going on with mortgages, like the whole thing that caused the 2008 crash. So we thought we could get financing. And when I looked into it, thankfully, it was contingent, 16%. Honey, the numbers don't work at 16% because my husband really liked the property. I'm like, it just doesn't work. We can't make it work. So we backed out of that one. And then we had put our earnest money up, and the agent called and she's like, hey, I have this other property, better location. I think you should come down and take a look at it. So we flew down. And I walked up to it, and it was painted Kelly green and bright yellow, Green Bay Packers colors. And I'm like, oh, this is awful. She's like, Dawn, paint's cheap. Okay. I'm like, okay,
Look beyond, look beyond.
so I started looking at it, and it was a 2-unit property. It was 2 bedroom, 2 bath on the first floor. Second floor was a studio on the top. It was set way back on the lot. It had this huge patio, but the biggest problem was there was no staircase from the street side to get to the second floor. You had to go from the Malecon. And there was no access to the Malecon anywhere near the house. And so they were really having trouble renting it out as separate units because of that flaw. So I said, okay, I'm interested. Let's meet with the builder. Because when you went up to the rooftop of the second floor, there was a view of both the Bay of Cancun and the Caribbean. And the military base is across the street. It's only 2 levels. So I knew if you went up one more level, you got a 360-degree view of the entire island. The view was there. You couldn't see it.
Right.
You had to see it with your mind's eye, right? So we met with the builder. We drilled him on a bunch of different questions. I actually created my first digital program I created was how to protect your wealth by buying foreign real estate. And there's like a whole checklist of all these different things that you have to think about and check into when you're buying foreign real estate that you may not have to worry about domestically. The biggest investment you can make with that is the attorney and finding a good real estate attorney in Mexico or whatever country you're interested in, because and not just one that's going to handle the closing, but somebody that's actually going to represent you would be the smartest move you could do.
So take us through what is your online program, and then let's talk about the journey of launching an online program.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. It's been so amazing. And actually I had a consulting call yesterday, and I told the guy, I'm like, look, online business is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Now, certainly you can be successful at it without understanding all the nuances of it, but there's a lot to learn, and I still am learning. So, and I had already been thinking about back in like 2018, I was already realizing like network marketing is not my future. Like it's cool. It's a great training ground for anybody that ever wants to start a business. I think that's one of the best ways, the most low risk, lowest investment businesses you could possibly start. I'm a huge fan of it. The mentorship, the sales training, all of that stuff. It's totally good. But I was just at a point in my life and I was like, I'm ready to do my own thing. What does that look like? And I really didn't know. I was kind of exploring different things. And then an old business coach of mine invited me to an event in Florida. And so I went over there to that, and I was introduced to ClickFunnels. And they're trying to sell this $3,000 package. And I'm like, look, I don't know who you are, what you do, but I'm not going to give you $3,000. But I go, but I'm really interested in this. They were doing the one funnel away challenge. If you remember, it was a 30-day challenge, $100. And they did all this training. I go, but I'm really interested in that challenge thing. Can I do that? And they go, oh yeah, you can do that. You don't need the $3,000 package. I go, how much is it? He goes, it's $100. I go, sold. And so that was kind of my gateway drug, okay, to the online business world was that challenge. And that's when I created that product, because I was like, okay, well, what do people ask you about all the time? That's what they said, right? And I'm like, well, they keep asking me about buying real estate. So that's what I did. And then the instructor was like, publish, you need to publish. And so I looked at doing a blog and realized how many blogs there were out there. And I'm like, publish what? And they're like, well, pick a blog you could write. And I'm a great writer. I could do that easily. But I was like, I think I might try that podcast thing, because what happened was was meeting all these super interesting people, all these expats. And so I'm hearing all these different ways that they've moved and what their motivations were and all that. And I'm naturally curious. My undergraduate degree was in anthropology. So I had done oral histories before. And so I'm like, it's pretty easy, right? Just do an interview. I don't really have to say a whole lot. I don't have to know a whole lot. I'm just going to interview these people, ask them questions. Terrified the first interview that I did. Terrified.
How hard can it be? It's good, but
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I think that people need to understand that, like, whatever you do for the first time, plan on sucking. Okay. It's not going to be, but fortunately for me, the first one we did, it was actually just a conversation with me and Tom on our boat in the salon, talking about our journey, because I thought that's really how it needs to start. People need to know who I am. So that was easy. So the second episode was a woman on the island who was actually an author. She'd published so she was a pro at these sorts of things. So literally, Cindy, I just turned it on and I kind of turned her loose. I'm like, so Cindy, tell me how you got here to Isla Mujeres. I mean, that was literally about it. And then maybe I injected a few things, but I'll tell you what, after I hit stop on the recording. I was like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And I was like, and she was amazing. So I was like, Cindy, wow, that was really awesome. I'm like, I think I can do this, and then the more you do it, you ask better. If you're naturally curious, which I can tell
Sure.
you are,
Yeah.
it's not that difficult to do really.
Right.
And it's so easy in this. And that's, I think, something that the average person doesn't realize. Like, it is so much easier today to build an online business in that way, the technology way, than, 15 years ago, even, it's really changed a lot. So I just started publishing, and then I was like, okay, I think people really want to know more about this. And like I said, I'm still getting all these questions. And then I came across a business coach that was basically teaching you how to, create an offer and do this live launch method. So I did that. I think I did the first one in July of 2020. And it was how to live in paradise without worrying about the price tag.
Love it.
5-day launch, free workshops with 4 bonus days. So 9 days of going live, all the things, all the emails and posts and all that stuff. And it's amazing I sold anything, because I really just was like, hey, whatever you need help with, if you want to do business, if you want real estate, if like whatever it is, I can help you. But I actually had a good number of people pay me for that.
So Dawn, that was your program, or was that like a free challenge?
It was the Dream Life Academy.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. Was it called that?
Right? The Dream Life Academy.
Yeah.
And so, so I did that. I ran that every 60 days for over a year, probably about 18 months or something. And I sold some different things too. Like, I put together a workshop with my friend Diane, like a 8-week program on moving overseas, more technical stuff. That one didn't really sell that well. And then I did do a retreat, and that one I think would have done better, but it was still, COVID was lingering.
Yeah.
And people were still afraid to travel and all that stuff. So I didn't do that. And then I had the opportunity, my friend Diane that I was collaborating with told me about this workshop about writing a book in a weekend. And I'd wanted to write a book for really a couple of decades. And I was like, write a book in a weekend? Really? And I was like, well, I have all these podcast episodes, all these great stories. Maybe I'll just make an anthology of my episodes, right? That was my thought going into it. So, but you had homework that you had to do. So I did the homework, and I went to this weekend workshop. And it wasn't just write a book, it was write a book that sells. And I was like, well, if I'm going to write a book, I might as well sell it, right? So I'm looking at this framework, and I go, this is my workshop. So the book really kind of wrote itself. So my 9-day workshop turned into my book. And so that really is all of the, how do you get started? Where do you start? How do you decide where to move? Like all the myths, oh, I can't afford it, it's too expensive. You have to be wealthy to live overseas, healthcare. Oh, we have the best healthcare in the United States. No, you don't, all these things.
So tell us, what is the name of the book?
The book is Claim Your Dream Life: How to Retire in Paradise on a Shoestring Budget.
And your YouTube channel is called
Midlife in Paradise.
Midlife in Paradise. And then your program and now you're relaunching, you're about to do a relaunch of this Dream Life in Paradise, or
Yes.
is it?
So fast forward to about a year ago, January, I realized while the podcast was cool, I'm like, my audience is on YouTube. I know I need to launch a YouTube channel before I relaunch my program, because I hit the pause button after my book came out. I just promoted the book. We're blessed with the income from the property in East Lamahetta. So I wanted to take the time to look at everything I had done. We had some amazing success stories in my program. One couple came in with a 5-year plan. It shrunk to 2 years, then 18 months. They did it in 10 months by following the process that I have.
So let's talk about the relaunch. Let's take us through that. So
what I realized is, my target market was really people like us. So I was an attorney. My husband was an engineer. When we were living in California, we were making good money, but we were stressed out. We both had businesses, we had a house. So we're not digital nomads. You don't just like pick up and go, right?
Yeah.
You have these complications. You have stuff, right? Like, what
Yeah.
do you do with all your stuff? And so I knew that like to serve my market, I'm like, I need to move it up further in the process. Like they are going to take some planning, right? You can't just do it in 6 months. Like I can't say, oh,
Right.
move to Mexico in 6 months. I mean, some younger people maybe, or if you're unencumbered, fine. But for the vast majority of my people, like they need some help with sorting these things out.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I need to move up further in the process. And also what I realized, paradise is internal, right? It's not about a geographic location. So if you're not happy where you're at, the chances of you moving geographically and being happy, if you don't change anything else, probably not good. Right. And I'm sure you've seen that living in Mexico yourself. People
Yeah.
come down. Oh, this is great. They're on vacation for 3 months. They start drinking. Pretty soon, oh, I got an alcohol problem. Or, it's like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. And oh, I missed this and I missed that. Right. And they're gone. So they're not really thinking in a proactive way about like what is going to get me
Right.
excited to get out of bed each morning. So I decided that was really where I wanted to focus. So it doesn't have to be outside of the country, right? It can be wherever you find that, energy
The
that you really
happiness.
want.
Yeah.
It's really about, how can you find joy and happiness and fulfillment. And maybe that means moving overseas, but let's get to the root of what that looks like first. So it's taken me really a few years to get clear about who I want to serve, what I want to help them with, and what I want that business to ultimately look like. And it's a 7 to 8 figure a year potential brand, the Life in Paradise brand. So where do you start? That was kind of,
Yeah.
where do you start? So I had,
With
um,
overwhelm.
right? And it's like, okay, first, and then the other thing that I discovered is, you know what? I'm not a CEO. I don't ever want to be a CEO. I have been on my own, either in real estate or the legal profession or network marketing or owning my own business. I am not about hiring people, firing people, managing people. That is just not my jam. I am a content creation machine, as it turns out, which is a good thing and a bad thing. But
Yeah.
I love to create content. But at the end of the day, it's like, if this is going to be a business, then there needs to be revenue, and right. And you do the things that sustain the business instead of just funding that business through my, vacation rental, which is kind of what I was doing after I stopped doing the launches, because newsflash, you don't make money from books. So it's taken me a while to just sort of think through, what does this look like? What is the message? What is the brand? And so last January, I attended a workshop for a YouTube program, and it was all about, I had to say, what industry am I in? And I'm like, what's my industry? Well, circling back to the book title, turned out it was retirement. That is my industry.
That you had been fighting your publisher to put.
That is my industry. And so the good news was,
Okay.
this was super easy. The program that I was in, or the workshop that I attended, and then I ultimately joined that program, was all about being a disruptor in your industry and throwing
Right.
rocks at it, right? And I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good. And so that's really what my YouTube channel is about, is redefining retirement, doing more of a midlife reset, right? Seeing it as a beginning, not an ending, taking that fear and turning it into curiosity and, potential, and really seizing that opportunity that we have. And there's a scientific component to it as well, which will probably come in later. But, I don't know if you've seen some of the more recent research that's come out that says our cells regenerate themselves up to 120 to 150 years. Like, we come into this body with a 120-year blueprint, but most of us wear out our bodies before we ever have a chance to live them. So
Right.
what if you could live to 120 and you could have a good quality of life to 120? Why in the heck would you retire at 65? I mean, when you do that, you've basically sent a message to your body that you don't need to be here anymore,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That's a really good way of putting it.
And so you need to keep that vibrancy. You need to keep, one of the mentors back in the Legal Shield days, Paul J. Meyer, who's sometimes considered the grandfather of the personal development industry, and that's part of the teachings that are in my program, is he died of cancer in his 80s. I think he was about 82 years old, but he had a 5-year plan. He had every year he would update that 5-year
5-year plan.
plan and have something to look forward to, right?
Yeah.
Something to keep you alive and excited about life. And I think that's a really big piece of it. So that's really what I've done with my channel, is really taken a deep dive into a lot of the research and a lot of the issues. I flag articles all the time. I've used articles as the basis of YouTube videos that I've created. One of the big messages is people don't fail financially, although that is a big concern with a lot of people not having the finances. They actually fail psychologically when it comes to retirement. And even people who have a lot of money, like money is not their issue, that's where they're failing. Because if you think about that, I mean, it's all about loss, right? Your loss of your identity. Like, if you own a business, even like you are that business owner, let's say you own an auto body or auto shop, auto repair shop, like you're the guy, you're the mechanic, right? So if you sell that business or close that business, like who are you?
I know.
Right?
And even just, you know what, even too, like even just as mothers, our kids move out now, that's a loss of identity.
Absolutely.
We get unfortunately retired from our jobs or whatever. We are like, I think midlife is that time where you are shifting identities and you either embrace it, like you say, or you're just on a downward trajectory after that, you know?
Yeah. So that's really what the new program is all about. So the title of it is Midlife Mastery, Your Retirement Freedom Blueprint. And
Okay.
it's really sort of non-retirement, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't need the money, good for you, then go start a nonprofit business, right?
Yeah.
And give
Do
back.
something at
Do
least. Exactly.
something. Go,
Yeah.
and if you're not that ambitious, then go volunteer, like embrace a nonprofit organization that you can give back to. Because that's the other thing spiritually, I think we all are hardwired to help other people.
Yeah.
And if we don't do that, it's a void in our soul. I mean,
For
I don't
sure.
know
For
how else
sure. For
to
sure.
describe it, but I think that's really
So
true.
Dawn, so you're about to do a pre-launch on this program, which is in online marketing lingo can often be heard as seed launch. So a
Yes.
seed launch is what?
I was thinking I would relaunch a high ticket program because that's what I did the first time. And then as I was starting to work with some of the coaches, they're like, nah, we think you should do about $1,000, 997 program, 8 weeks and do a seed launch. And so the good news is, since I had completely revamped the high ticket program, which was that one I probably will do in the fall. That one is called Midlife in Paradise in 90 Days or Less. That one is much more complex, obviously, and longer. And so what I did with the seed launch is I picked out like some of the juiciest parts of that program and created like a more of an introductory type of program that was much more affordable. It's not $5,000, it's $1,000. And I made the decision, because they were talking about this in the training. I thought it was great. I did this when I launched the other program, is I'm including a consultation, one-on-one consultation with me at the start of the program and the end of the program.
Right.
And so for $1,000, I mean, like literally, I wouldn't work for less than $500 an hour. That alone is worth the cost of the program. But the reason I'm doing it, and I think this is important for people to understand, is this is market research for me. Like even
Mhm.
with all the research I've done, all the reading, all the content creation I've done, like I'm fairly far removed from that attorney version of me back in, the early, that's over 20 years ago. So
Right.
I remember what it was like to be in that situation, but I don't know that my experience back then is identical to what people are facing today. So
Right.
I want these one-on-one conversations in the beginning because I want to know what keeps them up at night. I think I know what keeps them up at night.
Right.
But that's why you do a seed launch, is really to get the refinement going forward of your messaging, of your program, to be able to help people more. And it also obviously solidifies that relationship, because I will give a money back guarantee on it, you know? And so that is going to pretty much out of the gate say, hey, I care about you. I want to
Yeah.
know what you're, facing, what your concerns are, and what's it going to look like when we get to the end of the program. So there'll be a training which will be recorded, and then I'll either re-record it or it'll just be cut, right? And that'll become an online module. So the
Right.
idea with the seed launch is that can become a self-study program down the road.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Then there'll
okay,
be a
good.
Q and
Okay,
A at
good.
the end. So they will interface with me on a weekly basis as well. So that's pretty good value to get. And
Yeah.
it's gonna be a
Yeah,
very
for sure.
small group of people because I want it to be small. I want it to
Yeah.
feel like, I want to create community.
Intimate, like a
Yeah,
cohort. Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure.
Okay, so Don, so where do people find you so that if they're interested in maybe kind of doing maybe something like a freebie on your website or something, and then maybe kind of dipping their toe into your new seed launch, where would they find you?
So the YouTube channel is Midlife in Paradise. And then I do have another website called paradiseroadmap.com. Easy to
Okay.
remember. And you can get some information on there as well. And now, of course, I'm
Amazing.
on Facebook and LinkedIn and all the social media channels.
Well, here's what I can say for sure. If your program gives me the energy at 64 that you have, I am gonna just like, I'm in, I'm buying it. I'm buying it day in and day out. So, I mean, it's been amazing. You're full of energy. You've hit rock bottom. You've climbed way back up, and now you're continuing to expand. You keep changing, you're pivoting. And I think this is what we need to do. I think you've been a great guest. I love your story. Thank you for joining me today, Dawn.
Oh, thank you for having me, Lynette. My pleasure.
My pleasure.
Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.